Now, at the time of recording this, we're only a few days away from the start of the Kenobi series. A few days away from what I'd argue is the most highly anticipated show in the short history of Disney+, as well as what could be a sort of defining moment for the Disney era of Star Wars, one that restores some of the faith of disheartened fans, or one that kills that hope once and for all and sees them turn away for good. Which isn't to say that there aren't plenty of fans out there who are perfectly happy with what Disney has been doing in general with the franchise, or that you can't be looking forward to this series with nothing but excitement or minimal, if any, real doubts. But that said, there are certainly a lot of fans who aren't happy with what Disney has done with Star Wars, and for them, I do think this particular series of all series, or should I say this particular character, speaking of Obi-Wan, though I could certainly say characters considering Vader is going to be in this as well, and he's just as popular and beloved as Kenobi, if not more so. But I think this show, these characters, it's all something that they, Lucasfilm and Disney, have to absolutely nail. It's something that has to be great or fantastic after, well, mishandling other legacy characters in previous shows and movies. For better or worse, fair or not, this even just being considered good will be seen as a failure or disappointment to some fans. They have to handle these characters, again, of all characters in the franchise, nearly flawlessly for this series to work in the eyes of many. And when it comes to this show and the doubts around it by some, I think there are basically two main concerns I see out of people. The first is simply that they'll get it wrong in some way, shape, or form, with the most likely way being when it comes to Kenobi and Vader, or should I say Kenobi versus Vader, which some don't think makes any sense during this time period. Many out there think they had only two duels, one on Mustafar in Episode 3, and then the one on the Death Star in Episode 4. And that's it, and adding another either isn't needed or just doesn't make any sense for the story. And since that topic is one I've covered before in videos and given my opinion on, basically saying I'm in the camp of there is no need for a duel between Episodes 3 and 4, but I am willing to see what they do with it in this series, how they handle it, how they handle the rematch of the century, as Kathleen Kennedy has called it, before I pass any sort of final judgment. In other words, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for now, but if it turns out poorly, I will certainly give my opinion differently then. Anyway, since I've given my opinion on all that before, what I'll talk about here in this video is the other big kind of concern people have going into the series, which is that it's going to be some type of bait and switch, that it'll turn out to be, it's not really so much about Kenobi or that he won't be the actual star or hero of it all, and instead it's the new Inquisitor Reva that will kind of steal the show. And before going on, I will warn you that later on I will be discussing some of the leaks and rumors, which I myself was trying to avoid but ended up hearing nonetheless. And if you don't want to hear any of them, I will make sure to warn you well in advance that I'm going to be digging into them so you can click away or use the chapter feature to kind of skip over that entire portion. But getting to it here, and as usual, I'll try to tackle this from all sides, angles, perspectives, and so on. I'll try to be as fair as possible all around here. And so I think, obviously, Reva is going to be a very big part of the series. I mean, there's a reason why she or Moses Ingram, the actress who plays her, why they have been front and center in all the marketing and during the press tour for the series, that she's been paraded out there along with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen to promote this thing. And that's because she's pretty much going to be our main antagonist, right? It isn't going to be Vader himself running around after Kenobi in every single episode. It's going to be her and likely the other Inquisitors all kind of competing against each other to be the one who captures Kenobi and impresses Vader. Though I think you could argue that if Vader did get a hint or clue of Kenobi's whereabouts, he would be out there kind of leading the charge, which maybe or likely he is going to do, and he's just using the Inquisitors to kind of help him. Anyway, with Reva being a sort of main antagonist or a co-main antagonist with Darth Vader, I'm sure there's going to be some type of story there with her. I'm sure we'll get to know this character, what motivates her, and why. And I mean, that's even something we kind of demand or expect out of our villains in order to consider them good characters. We want to know what made them this way and what drives them, why they are the quote-unquote bad guy other than just being the bad guy. And so, of course, this series will be focusing on her, or should focus on her to some extent, and doing so doesn't automatically mean this is some type of bait and switch. Now, sure, if it focuses on her so much that Kenobi starts to feel like a side character in his own series, then yes, we have a problem, especially considering this really should be more so a Kenobi introspect than anything else. This really should dig into the character and what's going through his mind during this time period. This is what I'd argue fans mainly want from the series, a story about well, a story about Obi-Wan Kenobi and his struggles first and foremost. In fact, I think they could have made this almost entirely just about Obi-Wan, made it a smaller story with him in it, where he never leaves the planet or anything like that, never faces Vader again. And a lot of fans would have ended up loving it, though it may have been less of a hit with casual fans or average viewers who expect Star Wars to be more action-packed, who expect lightsabers. Either way, director Deborah Chow has promised a story that goes out of its way to honor these legacy characters, honor what Lucas wanted or intended, and that treads very carefully on this rather sacred ground for Star Wars fans. She's even said or compared this upcoming series to movies such as Logan and Joker, which is quite the bold comparison to make. And, like I've said before, I do have quite a bit of confidence in Deborah Chow. She directed 2 fantastic episodes of The Mandalorian, and she tends to say all the right things in interviews. Again, things like being very careful with the story and trying to honor Lucas and what he intended. However, she is not the only one who is responsible for this, right? There are other voices who will have their say in what this series will turn out to be, or what it has turned out to be, and they may be less concerned about those sort of things. And so now is when we're going to move into potential spoiler territory and discuss some of the rumors or leaks that are out there, which means if you don't want anything potentially spoiled or ruined when it comes to the series, it is a very, very good time to click away or to go down to use the chapter feature to skip beyond this section labeled spoilers, even though I don't know how much I'll have to say afterwards, but by all means do stick around. Okay, so from what I've heard, and mind you, I don't claim to have any sort of insider information, I don't have any secret sources from within Lucasfilm or anything like that. I simply, and unfortunately in this case because I was initially trying to avoid the leaks, I hear what others have reported, and from time to time I do get emails from people who claim to be in the know, and they give me little tidbits of information, and sometimes they do turn out to be accurate. Anyway, everything I have seen from all sources say roughly the same thing is going to happen at the end of this series, which is that Reva, our new Inquisitor, after chasing Kenobi around, will put together everything and will figure out why Obi-Wan was on Tatooine, and she'll figure out who he was protecting, that of course being Luke. Reva then goes to the Lars homestead, is about to kill Owen, Beru, and Luke, but Obi-Wan shows up and essentially talks her down, mainly because, as a former Jedi herself, she remembers who she was or who she wants to be. She then goes back to Vader and says she has killed Kenobi, which Vader doesn't believe because he just dueled him again and was unable to defeat him, so she just ends up killing her. The end. And so first of all here, do I believe this could be the actual ending, or do I think this is just all BS? And well, yeah, I could see an ending very similar to this happening. I do think, as talked about before, we will see and learn quite a bit about Reva in the series, and that she likely doesn't make it out alive. I do think she will be featured pretty heavily, and that we will learn that she was once a Jedi and that she holds some sort of resentment towards them. This is another rumor or leak I've heard, that she, as a former Jedi, has some sort of personal grudge against them, which I guess makes sense if she becomes an Inquisitor. I've also heard that through flashbacks we will learn what this grudge is, and that in the end she works through it all, and it's the main reason why she doesn't end up killing Luke and goes on to lie to Vader. And to me this makes less sense, because if Vader suspects she's lying to him about Kenobi, which he likely will, and she likely knows he's going to suspect she's lying, why doesn't she do something else? Why wouldn't she just not go back to Vader and not end up getting herself killed or having herself tortured and then maybe giving up the information about Luke? I mean, is she counting on Vader just losing his cool and killing her? And if that is the case, why even do that in the first place? Why go back to Vader only to die instead of, I don't know, trying to help the Jedi Order return in some way if you've had a change of heart? Now, could there be good answers to all these questions? Sure, there could be, or could be that these leaks are either completely wrong or only somewhat accurate and there's a lot missing from what is going to happen. But in either case, would this ending qualify as a bait and switch? Would Reva end up being the star of the show and stealing Kenobi's thunder in his own series? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Again, we'd have to see how it all plays out to know for sure. But Kenobi restoring or helping restore Reva's faith or belief in the Jedi Order could, in theory, go a long way in reminding him of his own duties, restoring his own faith in the Jedi. And something in the series is going to have to help him do that. We know or have been told Kenobi is broken to some degree, and guiding another who has lost their way, maybe even a little unintentionally doing that, could, in theory, be a good way to pull that off. Could be a way to show Kenobi restoring his own faith again. Though arguably the biggest problem I see here would actually be Reva going to the Lars homestead and essentially cornering and threatening to kill Luke, and presumably doing it with a lightsaber, which is something that Luke in A New Hope has clearly never seen before, a lightsaber. I mean, he also doesn't seem to think too much of crazy old Ben Kenobi, does he? He doesn't think much of him more than an old hermit, not a guy who once upon a time played a big part in saving his life, as well as the life of his aunt and uncle. Though I guess it could be that Luke isn't actually there at the Lars homestead when Reva shows up, that he's instead at Tashi Station getting some power converters with Biggs or whatever, and it's only Owen and Beru that are there when Reva shows up, and she's demanding that they tell her where Luke is, and then Kenobi shows up and manages to talk her down. And then I guess Kenobi just lets her go, believing she has been redeemed and she won't tell Vader any of this or have it tortured out of her. Though honestly, what would make even more sense is if Kenobi talks her down and everything seems to be okay and he's contemplating letting her go, and then Owen, or maybe even Beru, shoots her in the back or something like that, saying he'll do whatever it takes to protect Luke, and Kenobi will then decide Luke is, for now, better off in their care, or something along those lines. I don't know. To me, that makes more sense, having Owen kill Reva, than Reva going back to Vader and trying to lie to him about Kenobi, and then he just kills her. Either way here, and I don't know if it's more actual belief or just hope, but I don't think there's going to be any type of real bait and switch here. Yes, the show will focus on Reva. She is going to be a main character. But I have to believe, especially after the way they initially handled Luke in The Last Jedi, and the way they've been handling him since, with a lot more care, you could say, trying to take into consideration what fans didn't like about the way he was used before, that they know they cannot mess around with Kenobi and the story. They have to try as hard as they can to do him justice, or they're going to anger and lose even more fans. So again, yes, Reva is going to be a big part of the series. Yes, she will have her moments in it. And if she was just some generic Inquisitor for the sake of being an Inquisitor, what would even be the point? Fans would just complain she was a generic villain, right? And so in this case, though I certainly have my fears, I'm going to watch it, see how it goes, and judge it then. Now yes, I'll of course be watching and reviewing the individual episodes as it goes, and I'm sure some people will think I'm being way too harsh and nitpicky or critical of the first couple episodes or whatever, while others will think I'm being way too easy on it. That's just how it always goes. But we won't know how good or bad the series is in total until it is all said and done, until we get to see all the episodes. We won't know if there's any truth to these rumors till pretty much the end, or if they're all BS put out there by people who are going into this wanting it to fail. We won't know how good or bad Kenobi is until we actually get to see it. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about any and all of this, and do be warned if you're going to post in the comments below. There are likely going to be people discussing the leaks and rumors, so tread carefully. Either way, do try to leave your comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.